Good morning, and thank you for joining us for AARP Volunteering 101. I'm Sandra Harris, the AARP Massachusetts Volunteer State President. Today, you will hear from both volunteers and staff about the different ways that AARP is working for the 50 plus and their families throughout the state and how you can get involved. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few brief housekeeping items. Today's event is being recorded and will be sent to all registrants just in case you missed anything. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them using the Q&A function, which can be found at the bottom of your screen. We will have time for brief questions at the end of each segment, and we will stick around for an additional questions after the event. Lastly, all instructions on how you can get involved in our work will be sent to registrants after the event. I'd like to now kick things over to my fellow volunteer, Lenore Klein, who will be leading us in a short interactive exercise. Lenore, welcome.
Thank you, Sandra. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. My name is Lenore Klein, and I'm an AARP volunteer. You know, volunteers become involved for many different reasons, whether they connect with certain advocacy work, see their skills aligning with a social mission, or want to connect socially. Volunteers have unique reasons for sharing their time and skills, and AARP volunteers are no exception. So we're curious, why do you volunteer? We're now going to do what's called a chatterful. Please type a few words into the chat window on why you'd like to volunteer, but please do not press enter yet. We are all going to press enter at the same time to see all of these reasons for volunteering come to life at once. I'll give you a few minutes to get your thoughts down. So the question again is, why do you volunteer? Please remember, please do not press yet. Do not press enter yet. So why don't we get these, have you enter your responses, and then I will give the go signal. Okay, so on the count of 3, we'll all press enter and reveal our answers to why we volunteer. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, press enter. See all of our answers cascading in. This is wonderful. To give back, benefit others. I'm seeing so many incredible responses. And really what we'll cover today is ways that you can give back and to benefit others. Excellent. And for those of you who are new to AARP, you really learned a lot today from all the different speakers. So thank you for sharing. No matter your reason for volunteering, there is something for everyone at AARP, and we hope to show you that today. Now I'm going to hand it over to my staff partner, Kelly Leffler, who's going to briefly explain the origins of AARP.
Good morning, everyone, and pardon me while I get myself set up here. All right, hold on one second. Okay, there we go. Can everyone see my screen? Yes, okay. So let's talk a little bit, before we get into the specific volunteer opportunities, let's talk a little bit about our AARP origins and who we are as an organization. I think a lot of you might be familiar with AARP, but you might have a fixed idea of what AARP is, and it might have something to do with insurance or discounts, but the organization is a lot more than that. So let's talk a little bit about that. So AARP was founded by Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus, and you can see the quote that we have on the slide here: "The human contribution is the essential ingredient. It is only in the giving of oneself to others that we truly live." So Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus was a retired educator. She was the first female high school principal in the state of California. And when she retired, she decided that in her retirement, she wanted to spend that time helping other educators. So there's a very famous story about kind of the starting point for our organization. And it was when Dr. Andrus went to visit a retired Spanish teacher that somebody had told her to go check on. And she went to the address that was given to her, and she knocked on the door, and she said who she was looking for. And the person who answered the door said, "I'm sorry, nobody by that name lives here." So she was about to leave, and somebody stopped her and said, "I'm sorry, you must mean that poor old woman that lives out back." And out back ended up being a literal chicken coop that this retired Spanish teacher had renovated to house her and her cats on a measly pension. So this was kind of the final straw for Dr. Andrus. She started the National Retired Teachers Association, NRTA, which is still a part of our organization today, and later founded the American Association of Retired Persons. Now we've evolved since that time. We represent people that are 50 years and older. And I think of the folks on this call, probably the majority of you at 50 years were not yet retired. So we are no longer the American Association of Retired Persons. We are now just AARP. But it was that spirit of giving from Dr. Andrus that has still been ingrained in our organization today. And volunteerism is a huge part of that. So there are a lot of different pieces to the puzzle. The logo on the top left, the AARP Services Inc., is probably what most people think about when they think of AARP, when they think of those discounts. But we're a large organization. There are a lot of different pieces to us. So you'll hear a little bit about the AARP Foundation today. You'll certainly hear about AARP Massachusetts. AARP in general right now, our vision is a society in which all people live with dignity and purpose and fulfill their goals and dreams. And our mission, we enhance the quality of life for all as we age. We champion positive social change and deliver value through advocacy, information, and service. Our motto is to serve, not to be served. And we believe in real possibilities, helping people with their goals and dreams. So in Massachusetts alone, we have state offices in 53 states. So that includes all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. So in AARP Massachusetts, we have over 700,000 members. We have 10 state office staff members, some of whom you will meet today. And we also have an executive council of volunteers led by our state president, Sandra Harris, who you met earlier today, who is also a volunteer. So you hear a lot about what we do at AARP Massachusetts as well. So some of the ways in which we accomplish our work: advocacy. You'll certainly hear a lot about our advocacy work today. Advocacy is a huge part of what we do as a wise friend and fierce defender of the 50 plus. We also provide really important information and education to the public. And we also have member engagement and community service. So I am going to stop sharing there. And I'm curious if there are any questions on that. I know that was a lot of information and that was a very brief overview of a large organization. But just any questions before we move on to the meat of this event, which are our volunteer opportunities. I don't see anything in chat or in the Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to put any of them into the Q&A. And we will answer them throughout the presentation. So now I'm going to hand it over to our first presenters, who will be talking about our volunteer networks throughout the state of Massachusetts. So I want to introduce our staff member, Cara Cohen, and volunteers Mike Brousseau and Benetta Kufor.
Good morning, good morning. I hope everybody can hear me well. I'm delighted to be here with Mike Brousseau and Benetta Kufor. And looking forward to sharing with you a little bit about our volunteer network, our two volunteer networks across the state. So I see Benetta and Mike are ready to join in, and Delighted that we're a little bit ahead of schedule. Thank you, Kelly. That was always a story that I enjoy hearing, even though I've worked at AARP for 18 years. I always take heart in knowing the origins of AARP. I find it quite motivational every day to think about who our founder was and what motivated her. The AARP work across the state cannot be accomplished without volunteers. First and foremost, our volunteers are our most active members. You just heard Kelly say that we have well over 700,000 AARP members across the state. Bonetta and Mike are just two examples that I'm going to talk to now. You're meeting a lot of them today, and without the volunteers, the Ethel Percy Andrus story, the AARP story would not come to life. Bonetta and Mike are members of our volunteer network in the Worcester area for Worcester County. We have a volunteer network for Greater Boston as well. And we actually welcome the possibility of a volunteer network for other parts of the state as well. We have chapters. There are only 3 chapters left in the state, and they are independently affiliated, and we're proud to have them. And so this volunteer network that I'm going to hope that you come away understanding is about actualizing membership energy into our activities and our work. So when we convened the networks, we were looking very specifically at our work in Boston area and our work in the Worcester area, because we do deep community work, deep outreach work as part of my department's work and our state office's work in the Greater Boston area and the Worcester County area. And the volunteer networks coalesce people who are from all around those 2 geographic points in the state. Again, I want to accentuate the fact, I'm very sensitive to the fact that some of you are not in those 2 swaths of the state. So if you are interested in perhaps connecting with us, the beauty is that, the silver lining is that in the last 18 months, we have been all virtual and will continue to be virtual for the foreseeable future. And as a result of that, we've been able to welcome people from all parts of the state for our volunteer network meetings that happen every 3rd Friday of the month. So in 2 days, we have the first one coming up, and you can join from your computer or your phone at home. And so Bonetta and Mike, they have done that for the last 18 months. They were doing that in person in the Worcester area when we were meeting, and they have been a delight to work with. And so I want to turn it over to Mike Brousseau to explain why he enjoys the network and what are some of the activities that you want our audience today to know about. Mike, over to you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Brousseau, and I live in Millbury, and I'm currently an athletic coach at Millbury High School for 3 different sports after retiring from a career in high tech. So big change, a lot of community involvement, particularly with kids, a lot of fun. And that actually is what led me to look at the opportunity for AARP volunteering. My first original reaction was, is there a way to bring the talents of retired over 50 people to a wider audience, maybe to children as well? And there are some opportunities, and I think someone will talk about them later today, maybe in the reading program in Revere. There's not a lot yet out in the Worcester area, but we're still looking. But since we've been involved, Bonetta and I, about 4 years with the Worcester Volunteer Network and missing the in-person part greatly, we've kind of broken our work down into sort of 3 areas: education, service, and social activities. And I'm going to talk about a couple. So on the education side, for me particularly, I like the work AARP does with financial education. So we're talking about when to take Social Security, how to choose the right Medicare options, wills, estates, those kinds of things. And once or twice a year prior to COVID, there were in-person seminars being put on by AARP with a variety of experts who could teach, and typically we're getting over 100 and 150 people, what they could do as they approached the age of 65, as they had wills to do. And I really like that element of AARP, so I volunteer in that space to do anything that can help that session go off. On the service side, on the service side, we do a lot of little things that are rewarding and hopefully helpful to the community. So we work at a soup or food pantry in Clinton once or twice a year, particularly around Service Day, 9/11. I particularly worked locally here in Millbury at the local library to help them prepare for a book sale to increase funds for the town and et cetera. And then lastly, when I first joined, we were doing some work with the Boys and Girls Club in Worcester, and some of it was painting walls and doors and things that they really didn't have the personnel or the money to do, and that's rewarding as well. On the social side, my favorite that's gone on in the last 2 years is something that we do with Tower Hill Botanic Garden, and this is also educational as well. I helped be part of a team that worked out an arrangement with Tower Hill Botanic Garden that got free admission on Tuesdays for an entire month in the month of September. I think we're about to expand it to October for people over 50 and their friends to come and walk through the garden, understand what it was about. Of course, the garden was looking to see maybe they would join and have new members. Ultimately, it was a win-win for both organizations. And then the last thing I'll mention for me, particularly socially, is we had started a walking/hiking club just before the pandemic hit. We had met once or twice, and of course we're off right now, but there were a lot of people interested in area, and around Worcester there are many places to have either flat walks or slightly hilly walks where we could really have a nice time together and then talk about more things that we're willing to do, and that was really fun, so I missed that as well.
That's great. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate all those details. And Benetta, we're going to go over to you, and then we'll have a conversation and then take some questions. So Benetta, what brings you to the network meetings on a regular basis? What have you enjoyed most?
Okay. Well, I thought about why I sit at the table, so to speak. Especially after being over 50, I was looking for something to become more active in on a more regular basis. Working with people who were over 50, I found out that it's never too late to learn. It's a very rewarding time being a member, AA volunteer member. It provides personal growth for me. And it's an improved quality of life when you think about it. Remaining active, the whole social network is important, even though we're doing it via Zoom. We're still allowed to socialize. I've met more people on Zoom than I have when we were doing it live. So, and each one of them bring some very valuable information to the table that they've been able to share. I've been very impressed with the people who sit on the volunteer meetings and some of the work that they've done. So I continue to try to spread the word. Many of my friends and other people tell me they have a card, and so I'm trying to get them to utilize that card, go to meetings, find out what's going on, and participate. And some of them are interested. For example, in my church, we did a prepare to care. They were very, very excited about that because many of them that were there were caregivers, or on their way to be needing a caregiver. And so they found that very interesting, very informative, and would probably like to see it happen again once we get over this pandemic. It can be done online, but they like being in person, so I'm told. So I think, you know, for me, it's connecting with other people, trying new things. There's excellent information on fraud, caregiving, advocacy, just to name a few. I really like AARP, and I held the card for years before I actually utilized it. And once I did realize all the different activities, I haven't stopped.
Excellent. And Benetta Kafour, I met you on a phone call that we had for the first meeting of the Worcester Volunteer Network that
Yes.
we had to convene 4 years ago, as Mike said, 4 years ago. I think we had a snowstorm, and Kelly and I made the decision to still hold the meeting, but by phone. And we did have a good group of you on, and some of you are still with us 4 years later. And I remember distinctly, Benetta, your passion around older workers and supporting
Yes.
older workers.
Definitely.
Something that you can talk about for hours, and that you're
Sure.
passionate about. And we do a lot of programming around supporting older workers and the network and volunteers. I'm thinking of another volunteer member from the Worcester Volunteer Network who's also on our executive council, whose passion is older workers and supporting older workers. It is part of our core mission and part of our financial resilience work. So you've heard Bonetta talk about her passions and her interests and her connection points, and Mike talking about the various connection points that he has. And so I just want to make sure, first of all, you understand that we are doing this virtually. So the next step is for you to join our virtual meeting this Friday. You'll get the information in the follow-up email from Kelly. We meet at 11 o'clock and go till about 12:30. We again meet every month. We've joined the two networks virtually. We do very much intend to going back to in person when we can do that, when the organization as a whole decides to go back to in person. And I know especially Bonetta and especially Mike, we very much look forward to being able to be together in the same space physically. And at the same time, you've been able to ride along with us and participate and contribute, and we appreciate you very much. So Kelly, I'd like to ask you if there's any questions since I can't see them.
Yes, there are a few questions. Karen actually asked what time the meetings were, which you just answered, so thank you. There are questions about, are there volunteer opportunities on Cape Cod, specifically LGBTQ senior programs? And then another one that's in the same vein, are there volunteer opportunities for people who do not want to drive but are eager to become a volunteer?
Okay, great. So two great questions that Kelly and I think about a lot is the geographic spread, and we would very much welcome talking to you about opportunities on the Cape, and particularly, as you say, with the LGBTQ community. So please do reach back out to us individually, and I'd be happy to have that conversation. As I indicated, I teased a little bit in the beginning, if you want to start a volunteer network for Cape Cod, that is always a possibility we can discuss and perhaps construct together. So I welcome that. The second question.
There was another question. Are there any meetings in the Boston area to discuss supplemental health insurance?
Interesting question. So you're referring to our products and services. And for that, please call the toll-free number on your membership card. We are not equipped to be able to talk about that today or as part of our office's work. So welcome you calling your membership number for that information. Thank you for asking.
So Cara, we're getting a lot of questions on if there are volunteer opportunities in specific areas or towns. So maybe you want to clarify the volunteer network and.
Absolutely. So our team, and what you're going to hear today will give you a sense for ways in which you can get involved in your geographic area. By the end of today's program, you'll hear about tax aid, you'll hear about the work of the AARP Foundation tax aid program, the driver safety program, and the smart driver course, and teaching that. And you're going to hear in a few minutes from my colleagues, Jessica and Austin, about our advocacy work and the need for volunteers everywhere in the state to help represent our issues and our mission. And so stay tuned for that. And I want to hearken to Mike and Bonetta again. Both of you have been very helpful and instrumental in our advocacy work, and I want to thank you for that as well. If you care to mention, just briefly, so that people in the audience have a sense for, again, your connection points with us and what issues have resonated for you on the advocacy level. And I know I'm putting you on the spot because we didn't talk about this beforehand, but go ahead if you feel compelled, and if not, I'll speak for you.
I can just mention a quick point. So I went through quite a situation with my mother who had Alzheimer's, and particularly through the pandemic, and having some access to her and some care changes for her. And so AARP was very helpful to me to understand what opportunities existed out there. So there's a lot of knowledge in AARP about caregiving. And then it obviously changed during the pandemic, and we had to adapt. But I was able to contact Cara and contact others to get some information about what we could do next to help my mom in these really challenging times. And I know that on the legislative front, there's a bunch of work going on to try to bring more funds to people who are outlaying their own money to help out in caregiving. And there's a bunch of laws being looked at on Beacon Hill that could help out families who are intricately involved in their caregiving of a family member.
That's an excellent preview for what you're going to hear more about from Jess and Austin. Thank you so much, Mike, for teeing that up. And Benetta, did you just want to mention anything about the passion points for you briefly, or we can move on?
Just very quickly, recently I lost my brother who was in a nursing home, and I'm a strong advocate for making nursing homes better, livable communities for anyone who's housed there. I support that very strongly, and I really appreciate the support of the advocacy team as well, because they have so much good information to share.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I just want to wrap up by saying, unless there's some more questions, Kelly, thinking back to 2 questions back, we are approaching open enrollment period for Medicare. The question about health insurance reminded me, and I can't see people's comments because I'm on my phone here, but the SHINE programs at all of the COAs, the Councils on Aging, senior centers across the state, the SHINE programs are especially equipped and trained over many hours to help you make the decisions that you need to make about Medicare plans. And we're constantly telling them to go to make an appointment with the COAs. So please join up with our partners at the COAs to get that information. Kelly, anything else before we close?
That is it for right now. Let's move on to the next segment.
Thank you. I'm happy to introduce Jessica Costantino and Austin Hodge, our fabulous advocacy team. Thank you.
Thank you, Cara. Thanks, Mike and Benetta. So nice to see everybody today. And thank you all for joining today to learn more about what AARP does and also how you can be involved. Kelly, if you wouldn't mind putting up the slide deck that is related to advocacy. As you've heard, AARP focuses on advocacy because at the core of our work, what our founder realized is the need to help others become more secure, both with health security and financial security. And so today you're going to hear from me and from Austin. Both of us are the folks that are at the state office working to help with the advocacy, but we have a big team of people in Washington, D.C. And as Kelly mentioned, we have a team in every state, as well as a couple of territories in the District of Columbia, so that we can do this work. Next slide, please. So you could see there in the first picture, it was a lovely picture of the state Capitol. We also work at the federal level. So the US Capitol, the State House to the right there, and then at the local level, we're starting to get engaged more in that area as well. At the federal level, as you might imagine, we work on very big, important programs that help keep people both health secure and financially secure. Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, and then on the financial side, Social Security, age discrimination work, pensions, etc. At the state level, we take our cues from that health and financial security arena, and then we move towards policy issues where we can do that work as well. And at the local level, that's our ability to where we can tailor our work much more closely to what's happening specifically, but there's always a thread through of our priority issues through our work on the advocacy. And so next slide, please. Thank you, Kelly. I just want to give everybody some basic information of how we're made up. This visual shows you that in Massachusetts, the blue dots represent the Massachusetts Senate Democrats, the red are Republican members. Also in the House, blue dots representing House members who are of the Democratic Party, red in the Republican Party, and one independent there in yellow. The same for Congress, and I really want you all to focus on the vast difference between the colors here. So in Congress, as you know, things are much more closely contested with the party number. So you've got nearly all even split there, with a couple of exceptions. You can see a couple of little light blue dots in Congress. Those are independents who caucus with Democrats. A couple of open circles. Those are seats that are open that either have had races or will have races. And in Massachusetts, we have nearly all of our members who are Democrats. But the key for AARP is that we work on issues. And it doesn't matter if you're a blue dot, a red dot, a yellow dot, a light blue dot, any party affiliation. We work with you as an elected official because what we care about is making sure that our members have the best policy outcomes possible to help them live the best life that they can. And we know that policies at the federal and state level impact people and their lives. And so we want to make sure that everybody, regardless of party affiliation, if you are an elected member of the legislature or of Congress, is working to advance our policy priorities. Next slide, please. What is really critical to know about AARP's nonpartisan stance? And I want to make sure you know that we don't endorse candidates or elected officials. We don't give money to candidates or parties. We don't have a PAC or donate to political action committees. What we do, again, is we advocate on issues that matter to people that are 50 and over. We work across party lines, and we make sure that the information that we have and that we share is factual. The goal is to make sure that candidates and elected officials know where AARP stands, that they have data and impact research to do their work and make sure they are advancing policies to support our members and their families, and also to make sure that they are working towards advancing the other things that help people age well. All of that being said, we are political in the way that we do work with people who are in political office and our administrative people. So we do engage in political work that way, but not in a partisan way. And that really makes us different from a lot of groups. And it also makes it different because we know our members and their families are all across the spectrum. So they are Democrats, Independents, Republicans, Green Party, other parties, no party. And so we have to make sure that our work is driving from where our members are and what they need. Next slide, please. When you're an elected official, this is could be a good representation of what you see. AARP with Massachusetts, for example, more than 700,000 members here in Massachusetts, and that's that big graph there on the left-hand side of the screen. They know that we have a lot of members. They hear that from us. We remind them of that. But what they often hear is from a few maybe connected or impacted members who are engaging with them on a much more regular basis. And we have volunteer opportunities. Those are our volunteers who are meeting with elected officials, who are doing the work at the state capitol or at the federal United States Congress, continuing to engage with our volunteers and elected officials in small groups. But really what matters to elected official is the individual constituent, and that we represented here with the person at the bottom on the right-hand side of your screen. They care about you because you are in their district and you have the ability to vote for them and or not vote for them. And so you are the most important voice in their world when it is looking at what matters to them. They care about their constituents. So we want to make sure that we are elevating individual members to engage with elected officials. We can help you do that, and we are happy to help you do that. We have trainings and calls and meetings, and Austin is going to get into more of those details. So next slide, please. Just to give you a highlight, the core issues that we are going to focus on in the legislative session in Massachusetts this year. focusing on supporting caregivers with a tax credit, the core plan, which is the plan of the state that allows for people who are in a not-for-profit organization to save for their own retirement, the importance of helping have better quality and better outcomes and better long-term care, especially in nursing homes. And Mike and Vanetta both referenced their work helping us to do that and the importance of that work. And then finally, helping with some property tax deferral relief, getting some changes to the current laws to hopefully make improvements there. Next slide, please. So I'm going to turn it over to Austin now, who's going to go into a lot of the specifics and most importantly, what you can do as a volunteer or as an AARP member to help us get these things achieved. So Austin, off to you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me. So I won't go too deeply into the specifics, just to say that they are there. And if you want to learn more about the legislation that we're working on, the issues that we're working on, there are a number of ways for you to get that information. And so we'll click through these next few slides a little quickly, Kelly. But as Jessica mentioned, one of our bills is family caregiving tax credit. Another is on retirement savings, which is the next slide. The one after, Kelly, if you just click on forward, is around property taxes. I know this is a lot to click through, but I promise this is all available online and we can talk about that further. One more click should be our work on nursing homes and the impact of COVID-19. I do want to pause here a little bit to say that we are at, in terms of our advocacy, we are at such an important time for trying to make changes to nursing homes. As Jessica mentioned, we all saw what happened in nursing homes around the Commonwealth at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we really believe that now is the time for the state to address some of the deficiencies that existed before the pandemic and really led to some of the awful situation there. AARP is advocating for better staffing ratios, better wages for the staff, increasing the minimum wage, strengthening visitation rules, creating a pathway for single occupancy homes in nursing, single occupancy rooms in nursing homes, and a host of other reforms. So as I talk about the issues to get involved in, if this is something that matters to you, if it's something that you have a personal experience with, whether you've had a family member or loved one in a nursing home, either during COVID-19 or before, we want to hear from you. And if you can click on to the next slide, Kelly. This is what we need. We need you guys to be the people in Jess's image waving the flag, or at least someone going and talking. If you're not already, I really encourage all of you to become an e-activist. I know some of you on the phone, all of you on the phone, some of you already are. But we have a new website that we're using called Mobilize. I will put the link in the chat. We'll include it in the post-event information that goes out to everyone. But this is a way to sign up to be an e-activist, to sign petitions or letters going to your elected officials, also to sign up for events like our First Friday calls. We have a call on the first Friday of every month where we try to keep everyone updated on what's going on in the state legislature and federally, and put out a call for what we need from volunteers. Oftentimes what we need is for you to speak to your elected officials, make your voice heard, whether it's to testify, write a letter, write a note, write an email, sign a petition, anything to show support for some of these things is some of the most important things that you can do as a volunteer. We will be having an event on November 1st, which is a Monday in just a couple of weeks. Monday, November 1st at 10 a.m., we will be having our AARP virtual lobby day. Typically, we would all go to the State House, wear red t-shirts, and advocate for some of these things. But given the ongoing state of the world, we are doing it virtually this year. But that doesn't mean we don't need a show of support. So if you're interested in learning more about any of the issues that we very quickly mentioned, in particular, supporting caregivers and reform of the situation in nursing homes, those two events will be our focus on November 1st. To sign up for that event and learn more about it, it's on that same webpage that I just put into the chat, mobilize.us/AARPMA. And it's a great way to sign up, learn more, hear from elected officials, and ask questions. So that's it from Jessica and I. We're at our time, but I know Kelly wants us to pause for some questions as well. Oh, and there's one more slide, Kelly, which is just our contact information, which I think will also be available to everyone afterwards. Jessica and I are the whole advocacy team for Massachusetts. It's just the two of us. So if you have questions, if you're interested in volunteering, or have interest in anything else advocacy related, we're always available by phone or email. So I'll hand it back to Kelly for see if there are any questions.
I actually don't see anything in chat or Q&A right now, but I think what we might do is if there are questions that roll in, Jess and Austin, if you just want to keep an eye out and maybe some questions will come in the chat after.
We'll answer them in chat.
All right. All right, now we are going to move on to our Speakers Bureau, our volunteer-led Speakers Bureau. So I'm going to invite Lenore Klein back to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm just getting my slides put up here, and thanks for the opportunity to speak about our Speakers Bureau. Today, I'll give you a brief overview of the Bureau, my role in the program, and volunteer opportunities. Then we'll have time for questions again. We're going to start with a poll. We're going to ask you, I'm going to end this and relaunch. What is your experience and comfort level in public speaking? No experience, looking to become more comfortable with public speaking. Some experience, comfortable speaking. Please enter your responses. There is no right answer. So we'll wait a couple of more minutes. This is terrific. Looks like we have a lot of people with experience and confident in giving presentations. And you know, whether you are new to presentations, you have a little experience, or you presented a lot, today you'll learn about a variety of opportunities to increase your knowledge and get involved in the Speakers Bureau. So I'm going to go back to the quote that Kelly shared with us. And to me, it is such a powerful legacy that Dr. Andrus left of really giving back through education. And the Speakers Bureau programs are a vital part of Dr. Andrus's legacy of educating and enlightening the 50+ population. So let's go into what is involved in the Speakers Bureau. It's an educational program that provides timely and insightful presentations on issues relevant to our 50+ community. Speakers are all AARP volunteers, and presentations range from 30 to 60 minutes in length. And by the way, this is a free community service offered by AARP. Our speakers present to senior centers, community organizations, retirement communities, libraries, and houses of worship. And AARP has created a series of do-it-yourself toolkits. We call them DIYs, and believe me, that's the only acronym I'm going to include today. These resources give you all the tools to give interactive workshops. The Speakers Bureau core team has talented volunteers who specialize in different topics and skills, and we meet on a bi-weekly basis. So here are some of the popular topics that we have that are most in demand, and they also tie to our core initiatives and programs that support our state goals. 6 pillars of brain health. This covers the components of a brain healthy lifestyle and provides actionable steps and resources to improve your brain health. Home Fit offers information to help people stay in their homes, including room-by-room solutions for adapting your house to fit your needs. Fraud Watch Network teaches people how to spot and avoid identity theft and fraud so you can protect yourself and your family. The Prepare to Care offers a framework to help you make plans to care for friends, family members, or loved ones. And you will have the opportunity to connect also with other family caregivers, exchange tips and advice, and learn about resources available to you. The Social Security provides all the facets of this important program, such as retirement benefits, survivors, disability benefits, when to claim your retirement benefits. And the Fact Tracker, that's a fairly new presentation we've seen in the last year, equips you with tools and resources to stay safe online by determining if the information you're reading on the internet is misleading or false. And then finally, Decluttering and Downsizing explores why stuff is so important to us and teaches practical, easy to follow tips on downsizing and decluttering. And here is our flyer for our Speakers Bureau. We have about anywhere from 10 to 15 different topics, and we'll send that out to you in a follow-up email. So let me talk about my role in the Speakers Bureau, how I became involved. I was a trainer, a corporate trainer in financial institutions, and designed and delivered all kinds of training. So when I saw this as an opportunity to become part of a Speakers Bureau and giving presentations, this really felt important to me. So in 2019, I met with Kelly and we formed the core Speakers Bureau team of folks throughout the state who were specialized in different areas. And then I created and delivered an in-person Train the Trainer program in 2019. Of course, in 2020, we had to pivot to the virtual platform. So I delivered a virtual Speakers Bureau training workshop in 2020. And also we followed this up with Zoom practice sessions for presenters, since Zoom is such an important skill. And here's how you can get involved in the Speakers Bureau. Presenting, we already discussed that in the poll question. It's mastering the knowledge of Speakers Bureau topics and delivering in-person and virtual events, and sometimes partnering with mentors or seasoned speakers. And if you would like to know about other opportunities, volunteer opportunities besides presenting, we have scheduling and administrative function that's a real vital part of the Speakers Bureau. And it really includes monitoring an email box for online requests. We do have an online scheduling process that was developed by volunteers and staff in 2020. It's also getting in touch with the requesting organization, soliciting presenter for the engagement, and tracking registration. Marketing and promotion. We want to be able to get to educate the public on what we have to offer. So this is really identifying organizations for outreach, such as healthy aging coalitions, libraries, and senior centers. And then following up with existing partner organizations to schedule future presentations. A lot of this is about relationship building and really working with the partner organizations out in the communities. Training and coaching. It's creating and updating materials to provide in-person presentation and virtual presentations. And then a huge opportunity is to get involved and come into the bi-weekly meetings. We have folks who provide a lot of ideas. We love the feedback, and a lot of the Speakers Bureau processes that we've developed are a result of the great ideas discussed in our bi-weekly meetings. And so the next steps would be to attend the virtual Train the Trainer Speakers Bureau workshop, if that's something that you're interested in. It's November 10th from 10 to 12, and a follow-up email will go out with a registration link. So please let us know, and I can see by the interest in the poll question that there are a lot of folks who would like either to enhance their presentation skills or already are experienced speakers. So we encourage you to sign up for this. We would love to have you. So thank you for your time and your interest in the Speakers Bureau. So with that, Kelly, I'll open it up to any questions.
And I don't see any questions in the chat. There were some questions about people that are not interested in public speaking. So we will add that to our survey next time, and thank you for that feedback. At this point in time, I don't see any Speakers Bureau related questions. So it might be a situation again where you can answer any questions that pop up in the Q&A or chat.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my fellow volunteer, Anita Albright, to talk about age-friendly and social isolation.
Good morning. I'm going to talk today about AARP's commitment to working with volunteers and local leaders to create more livable and age-friendly communities. Kelly, can you put the slides up? So what are some age-friendly volunteer opportunities? That's what we're going to be discussing today, and I'll talk a little bit about my experience. So first of all, what is an age-friendly community? Next slide. So an AARP, through AARP network of age-friendly states and communities, activities are provided to support communities that want to develop policies, systems, services, and products and technologies that promote health and build and maintain physical and mental capacity across the life course, and enable people, even when experiencing capacity loss, to continue the things they value. Many of us say we want to age and continue living in our communities. And this initiative is really basically a worldwide initiative, also supported by the World Health Organization, to ensure that people can do that. Next slide. So a survey was done with a number of people in a number of countries about what makes a community a great place to live. So this slide shows what was determined to be the 8 domains of livability. So outdoor spaces and buildings, and just think about these as I go over them in terms of how they relate to you and your life in your community. Transportation, communication and information, and that's proven to be extremely important this past year and a half. Civic participation and employment, how we stay engaged in our communities, how we continue to work if that's our choice. Respect and social inclusion. Health services and community supports. Those are essential across the lifespan. Social participation and housing. And particularly in Massachusetts, housing has become a very important issue. Some other areas that have emerged and that people are building on are emergency preparedness, elder abuse, public safety, and dementia friendly. So within communities who apply to become designated as age friendly, the communities develop a work plan that they work on over 5 years with really what applies to me, what applies to my community to make it as livable as possible. And we are talking about livable communities for all of us. So what we've learned is that older people want is pretty much the same things as what millennials want. And age friendly isn't just about older people, it's about all of us. Next slide, please. So what are some opportunities for volunteering engagement in livable communities? And again, there are a number I will ask Antron to give me an idea of how many we have in this state. He can put that in the chat. But we have Massachusetts really is in the forefront nationally, and actually we're one of the few states that have been designated as age-friendly as well. So age-friendly volunteers, Antron just said we have 85 communities, and that's really quite good. It's getting close to 1/3 of our communities. So age-friendly volunteers provide credible presence within each community. One of the communities I worked with was actually Bedford, Massachusetts. And we got representatives from faith communities, from town government, city government, from so many different organizations, and representing really a diverse representation of the community, including culture and age. And it was so important to hear from everybody because it's what you want, not what we want. So to get that representation across the community is important. Deliver knowledge of the community's history. That's very important in terms of how this community wants to move forward. Bring networking resources, including knowledge, skills, and contacts. And you know, everybody can bring more people to this initiative and offer issue area expertise. I think Lenore is a good example. She had expertise in presentations, and she's developed a very vital speakers bureau. You know, what's the expertise that you bring? And it doesn't have to be a professional expertise. It could be, you know, just living as a family in your community. That's important to you, and you bring that experience. So inspire and motivate people to improve communities, to make sure that they're livable, walkable. It's very important. Many of our communities, people can't, there's no sidewalks to walk on safely. And then build capacity for community and state initiatives. So what happens in our local communities can resonate at the state level as well. And what we can learn from communities around the country. So it's really becoming a very strong, knowledgeable network. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So what are some activities in terms of community volunteers? So how representing AARP at Livability events by speaking with fellow residents about their interests and concerns, really bringing this to the forefront. Help facilitate community-focused events. As I was just talking about sidewalks, but we have available a walking audit where you can walk around your community and identify issues and barriers. Listening sessions, again, listening to what it is that's important to people. And just listening to the chat today has been very helpful to understand what people are interested in relating to volunteerism. And then placemaking activities. Deliver educational presentations about age-friendly to partner organizations, communities, and general public. For instance, I did a presentation to an assisted living facility in terms of how they could be involved and how they could keep their residents active and engaged in the community. So there's many opportunities such as that. Helping to coordinate age-friendly events such as walking programs, you know, being represented in your community at things that are going on there. So participating in age-friendly related local advocacy. And, you know, as we think about advocacy, as Jessica did, you know, where can we advocate in our community? I mean, I live in Milton, and airplanes flying overhead is an important issue to many people here, and the noise-related factors and pollution-related factors. So that's something that, you know, we engage in. Keeping livable community issues in front of candidates. Transportation around a town that doesn't have a lot of public transportation, for instance. Meeting with our elected officials, making sure they know that we are a presence in the community and that we vote. Writing letters to the editor, as well as posting on social media about, you know, about your interests and keeping your community livable. Next slide, please. So what are some issue area volunteer activities? So serving on local boards and commissions related to the domains. I mean, one, for instance, every community in Massachusetts has a disability commission. Can you participate on that and make sure that your sidewalks are accessible, the services are available? So if you're a retired planner serving on an advisory committee relating to transportation. So what is it? What's your interest in your background that you can bring to local boards and commissions? Councils on Aging all have boards as well. Participating in the execution of an action plan. So I think I mentioned earlier that to become designated as an age-friendly community, you develop an action plan related to the domains that I discussed. So how can you participate in that? So they come up, your action plans, you come up with what are the outcomes that you want to happen, and how can you and other volunteers in your community contribute to reaching those, and working with the other organizations in your community to do that. So for instance, helping with implementation of complete streets and policy initiatives, developing projects, building coalitions to allow stakeholders to choose options that lead to desired outcomes around, could be around housing. Zoning is an important one that we're going to learn more about. Present on specific area issues. So developing relationships with organizations to expand capacity for AARP program offerings, making sure that, for instance, some of your organizations in your community are aware of all the topics for the Speakers Bureau. That's just one example. So next slide, please. Questions. Are there any questions? And this is really just touching the surface of what's happening in Massachusetts around age-friendly, and Antron Watson can let you know about other ways to become involved, but there really is quite a strong network either in your region or in the whole state. And do you want to start one or participate? So are there any questions?
And I've been sharing my screen. So somebody was asking where to get a list of walking programs.
So I would say probably a good place to start is your Council on Aging. Every community in Massachusetts has a Council on Aging. There's also, I think that would probably be the best place to start.
Antron also put the map of age-friendly communities into the chat.
Thank you.
Let's see. I think that's all that I see.
There's only one more question, if I may jump in, and it's about placemaking. If you could describe what placemaking is a little bit, Anita.
I'm afraid that you're going to have to do that.
And I will. So Antron, did you want to come on, or did you want me to talk about it?
Also, Antron has a slide that he wanted to about an upcoming event, that if we can show that.
It's a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, so I can jump in. Placemaking are just general activities in the community that really are test and learn opportunities for communities to either address an issue such as traffic calming measures. They'll put up a temporary fixture to help slow down traffic, or test and learn parks and public spaces to really engage people a little bit more with the public space which may be underused. So maybe like a pop-up event of some sort where people are there able to ask questions, learn about other community features, or give input on how they could improve the park to get people to participate more. So that's a general example of placemaking. And we'll put some more links in the chat for you all to look into that a little bit more.
And I just wanted to say, Karen, you had a question about the Disability Commission of your community that I mentioned. It's actually each community has a disability commission. So if you go to your to the internet page for your community and put in disability commission, you should find something.
I think that that's all that I see right now, Anita. All right, so thank you so much, Anita. We are going to move right along to driver safety. So I would like to introduce volunteer Doug Prentice.
Hi, everybody. Hope all is well. I'm a driver safety instructor, and I'll give you a little bit about that program shortly. But let me just give a background of about it and what's involved, how I got involved. About 6 years ago, when I decided I didn't want to continue working 50-hour work weeks, I started figuring, besides doing all my projects around my house and so many times you cut the grass and you fix a window and things like that, I thought, how could I get involved? In the job that I have as an engineer, I was actually worked with a lot of communities around the state. And I really enjoyed that. I felt I was giving a lot to that. And I said, how can I tie that job that I work with, or work on with the communities and with my passion? And I have a passion actually for transportation. Going back, I think we all can riding bikes, but as I think a kid where it really kind of hit me was a 12-year-old. I had some medical issues, and my dad, of course, being the only one who was driving the family at the time, could not drive me into Children's Hospital. So I had to take a bus and the subway into Children's Hospital in the Longwood Gardens area, all by myself as a 12-year-old. You think of that today with your grandkids or something like crazy. But ever since then, I've had a real interest in transportation. In the 60s and 70s, I rode my bike in college. All my classmates laughed at me and all that, but how can I bring this all together? So I heard about the driver safety program through emails and ads and so forth. And I got involved in that. And it's a program that is started around 40 years ago. All right. It's a program here in Massachusetts. It's a driver safety course that actually runs for 4 hours. Many other states around the country have 6-hour courses and 8-hour courses, but here in Mass, we have a 4-hour course. So I signed up as an inquiry to look into it. And I was basically put in contact with the chief trainer and the state coordinator, so that anything you do in driver safety, you're always going to have somebody to turn to. So I basically, in driver safety, you basically take an online course at your own pace, all right, so that it's all sort of a program that's been canned and put together, and go through that. You go through a little student teaching, so you maybe sit in a class with a teacher, instructor who's been doing driver safety course. And the course we have is actually a program that's been updated periodically. So we're actually right now launching the new program in driver safety next year. The previous update was, I think, in 2013. All right. So if you think about the driver safety, probably the last course we all took was when we were 16 years old and took our driver's license test, and nobody's done it since. But I want you to think about this. Think about the very first vehicle that you drove as a young teenager. And it probably was something with a bench seat that maybe 3 people could sit in front. It probably has a vehicle that had an AM radio, no FM. It probably had stick shift, or automatics weren't as prevalent back then. It probably had no air conditioning. It had probably one mirror just on the rearview mirror here and a driver mirror on the left. And now think about the vehicles either that you drive today, or maybe your kids drive, or your grandkids are driving. And it's basically, in an automobile today, it's almost like you're in a cockpit of an airplane. It's so changed. So what we do with the driver safety program, we bring as we go through the teaching on the instructor, we ask the volunteers, and so I'm a volunteer instructor here in Mass, is basically bring this driver safety program out to your audience. So the audience may be in a hospital, it may be at a senior center, and there's a standard course. So we have a booklet with basically 6 components. The very first component, or unit as we call it, is we ask, why are we here? So we try to basically take the vehicle with the environment. The road has changed a lot. The state laws have changed a lot. Actually, like last year, for example, we finally got held hands-free finally approved here in Massachusetts. Where I think right now in New England, there's 2 states that don't have it. We talk about how things have changed up in the road environment. There's so many pavement markings and new signs. Well, how do you know what that's all about? Well, this driver safety course is basically going to work you through with that. And then we talk about the other pieces out there, the how to execute, in how to merge. I mean, there's typically a lot of things we as older drivers have a hard time doing. Driving at night. I had an aunt who, when she turned 60, which we look at it today as young, said, I'm not driving at night anymore. You know, merging onto a highway, taking left-hand turns, all driving at dusk and dawn, always tough times to do. Well, in the course, what we do is give some assistance to that, is to help people so that they can learn how to navigate under those changes. And then as we go through the course, all of us recognize that at some point in time, we're not going to be driving. So when we're not driving, because we have got that independence right now, what do we do? All right. So what are the other sources? What are the other means to get around? So the course that we teach covers 6 units, covers a whole gamut of things to give new information to our participants in the class. So the class may run from maybe 2 people to, I've had classes with 30 people in it. So it's something that we, if you want to be a driver and safety instructor, what you'll be doing is basically teaching a canned course. In other words, a course that comes with a standard participant guidebook. So something like this is our guidebook, which is our driver safety book. All right. So that all participants get that. So you'd follow a standard program throughout the 4-hour period. Of course, 4 hours, you're probably taking a break for lunch as well, to get all through those 6 units to teach people. So I work mostly with senior centers around the state. And all I've asked people to do is, like, I want you to get one nugget out of here, out of today's course, just one nugget. So one lady comes up to me and says, after the course is over, she goes, Doug, I didn't get one nugget. And I was very bothered. She goes, I got about a dozen. And I said, wonderful. So obviously we made an impression. And again, the course is something, if you have some public speaking, and I think we saw that there was a little whole question that went out to everybody on that. It's great. And if you haven't had any experience with public speaking, that's okay too. But what you all do, like with me, we all drive a car. So we all have ways to sort of connect with the audience anyway. So I think with the course that we get out there, again, it's a standard course, a set program. We've got guidance throughout it with timelines and how much to teach, what time to get out of it, when to take a break. People get a certificate. Some states, and some in this state, some insurance companies actually give people discounts, all right, for taking the course. But it's something that you would be under the tutelage of the senior trainer, the chief trainer in the state, or the state coordinator of the state to sort of work with you if you're interested in being involved in driver safety and being a driver safety instructor. We do have a marketing person, driver safety, that sort of helps find you host locations. So as an example, I've reached out to many of the towns that I've worked with previously, and I do the driver safety course in the senior centers. And it's all set up with either a smart TV or a board or laptop or whatever, but a lot of times that's all provided. So I have a lot of fun with it. What I get out of it is the fact that when that lady said, I got 10 nuggets, I know 12 nuggets, I was thrilled. So I get a great deal of satisfaction. And I think I did see the chat that everybody had put in answers on that about what you want to do. There's a tremendous bit of satisfaction after being an instructor in this course. So it's, I think, certainly a great program. So with that, if there are any questions, Kelly, on that, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And if you're interested, certainly you want to touch base with our wonderful staff in Boston, Kelly, Cara, and everybody else over there to put you into, if you're interested in becoming an instructor. So Kelly, I don't know if we've got any questions in there or not.
Once again, we have a very attentive audience, but not that many questions specifically. We'll wait for them to come into chat. It seems like questions are popping up after the presenters finish. So just pay attention to chat. With that, we are going to move along to alliteration. So I'd like to welcome Liz Yanashevsky, Josephine Watson, and Doris Dion to talk about what they are up to.
Thank you, Kelly. So my name is Liz Yanashevsky, and I am a recruitment and training specialist at Literations. I have a brief slideshow for you and then 2 volunteers who are going to speak just about why they got involved and give us an insight into what they do. So I will be sharing my screen. And so we are Literations, formerly Generations Incorporated, if you've heard of us. And we're asking you to use your passion and life experiences to make a lasting impact on young children. We are an affiliate of AARP Experience Corps, and what we do is recruit and train older adults to serve as volunteer literacy coaches to help kindergarten through 3rd grade students in under-resourced communities become strong readers, develop confidence, and unleash their potential in the classroom and beyond. We drive educational equity through experienced volunteers, empowering young readers for lifelong learning. Our vision is that all students, regardless of zip code, will enter 4th grade as proficient readers. So as a volunteer literacy coach, you would use a structured, proven program to coach kindergarten through 3rd grade students. And for this school year only, we've bumped that up to 1st through 4th grade to address the learning loss that happened as a result of the pandemic. You'd be coaching students in fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. You would meet one-on-one 2 times a week for 30-minute sessions for the full school year. And we ask for a minimum of 4 hours per week, which is split into 2 days, 2 hours each day. Right now, we are prioritizing placing our 10-hour per week Americorps stipend member positions. That comes with a modest stipend and an education award. And folks who are serving under the Americorps stipend are asked to serve 3 days per week, about 3.5 hours each day to get to that 10-hour per week service. We are always tracking the impact of our intervention with students, and we're pleased to report that students who participate show an increase in their reading by an average of 1.5 grade levels. And beyond reading skills, our coaches are critical mentors to these young students. And we've had a research study in 2019 showed significant improvement in social emotional learning, particularly personal responsibility, relationship skills, decision making. And overall, that study showed that over 74% of students significantly improved their social and emotional skills over that 1 school year period, giving them the tools they need to succeed in reading and beyond. And so if you would like to become involved, visit our website, literations.org. You can see a list of our programs. Right now, we are partnering with 9 Boston public schools, 3 Boys and Girls Clubs in Boston, and we're happy to report that we're looking to expand our programming outside of Boston. We're in kind of second round conversations with the Framingham Public Schools, and it's looking very promising that we might be able to start placing volunteers in Framingham as early as January, and if not January, the 2022-23 school year in September. If you are interested, again, go to our website. There's a button there to fill out an online volunteer application. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and ask first Josephine Watson to tell us briefly why you got involved as a volunteer and what you do, and then pass it on to Doris after.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Actually, Liz was my first supervisor when I started, and I did start in the classroom. I've been with Literations for approximately 11 years. So I started off in the classroom, but now I'm a site team leader at one of the schools in Dorchester. And it was an excellent opportunity to bring my personal skill sets and be utilized fully there. I learned early on that I like to keep busy and involved in working. And so it was an excellent opportunity to do that. You can use your experience from your jobs, and we do have people who have had teaching experience as well. And you can work with children if you have the wisdom and the patience and the empathy to work with children who may or may not be challenged because of their environments as well. It's an excellent place to come. And I know what gave me the most joy was when we were working in person, and we're back to that, so to speak. But when I first started, to have the children have an aha moment, I call it, which is when the light bulb goes on and they truly realize that, yes, I can read, yes, I can get this. And you can bring your own personality and your own humor to it. And Doris is working in the classroom, and I'm sure she can speak to all of that. You're muted, Doris.
Yep, sorry. I'd love to speak to that. Last year was my first year at Literations. It's my first year volunteering with AARP. With the sale of my my business and with the pandemic, all of a sudden I had lots of time on my hands, and I wanted to use it wisely and productively. I was lucky enough as a kid to be a reader and to have books open up all kinds of worlds for me. And I really wanted to help kids who were struggling with reading because it's the basis for everything else. Now coming back to it, and last year was virtual. So for me, that was something that was a skill that I had to learn, that we all had to learn. And AARP and the program, this Literations program, just did a fabulous job of training us and getting everyone on board and developing the program as everything was happening. So that was terrific. Now coming back for my second year, I come back for not just the actual coaching of children, but also for the friendship, the community, the encouragement that you get from that community, and also the stretching of my own skills. And I consider myself to, and I also come back for the most selfish of reasons, and that is that volunteering feels good. And that after a reading session with children, that good feeling stays with you all day long. So I consider myself lucky to have found this wonderful program and working with a wonderful group of people. And that does so much for young readers, and that also does so much for anyone who volunteers. And that's all I got to say. It's terrific.
Thank you so much, Josephine and Doris. I saw a few questions come into the chat that I'll answer. The question that's on everyone's mind, is this virtual or in person? And we did have a 100% virtual program last year. This year, we're going to have a hybrid program. So some volunteers will be coaching virtually and some will be able to go in person. It was dependent on the volunteers' comfortability going in person, and also each school and club made their decision whether we could have in-person coaching or virtual coaching. So there'll be an opportunity for both this year. And a question came in, how long is the training? So we have 2 half days of training. In total, it's about 6 hours. It's been virtual training. And then every month there's a monthly site team meeting that will also be virtual, where there is support from your fellow coaches and also professional development just to add more skills to your toolbox. But I invite you to go to our website and fill out an application if you're interested. And also you could email recruitment@literations.org if you have some specific questions for us. Thank you. And I'm passing it on, I believe, to Kelly. Thank you.
Actually, Liz, we do have a couple more questions that showed up in the Q&A.
Okay.
Other grade levels that are available? Are there other grade?
Are there other grade levels? We typically only work with kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. And as I said, this year we are doing first, second, third, and fourth grade. This is the first time we're doing fourth grade, and we may continue that after this year. We're going to reevaluate at the end of the year, but we don't go beyond fourth grade.
And can you repeat the info about the Americorps opportunities?
So the Americorps member position is 10 hours per week. It is 300 hours for the full school year. So we break that down to about 10 hours per week. I believe the allowance, the stipend allowance is around $2,000, and there's an education award that's about $1,300. And that's paid out in semi-monthly installments of about $106, so twice a month.
Thank you. And then one last question, when is the next training?
We have just finished our schedule of trainings, and we're providing folks with recordings of trainings, and then we're going to have a sort of an abbreviated debrief with folks who have watched the recording of trainings. We are prioritizing placing folks in the 10-hour Americorps member positions for the remainder of our recruitment cycle, but there's always fluctuation, so I encourage even individuals who are not interested in the Americorps 10-hour position to also apply, because we do have openings that open up throughout the year, and we are able to place people usually on a rolling basis.
And a couple others coming in. One that I missed, you covered how long the training is it in person, and who is eligible for Americorps?
So the training has been virtual, and in terms of who's eligible for Americorps, I believe anyone is eligible for Americorps as long as they have not completed 4 years. That's the cap in their lifetime, completed 4 years of Americorps. And there may be other eligibility requirements that I'm not aware of, but I don't believe that they're very stringent in terms of, we always do a background check, fingerprinting, and that type of background clearance. But in terms of other requirements, other than the 4-year maximum, I believe it's open to everybody.
And how are students selected for the program? Do they volunteer, or does someone else encourage them?
Right, so in these schools, it's the classroom teacher who identifies students who are behind in reading and would benefit from the type of coaching we provide, focusing mostly on fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And in the Boys and Girls Clubs, it's the parents and the club administrators who kind of recognize that a certain child would benefit from this type of reading practice, and they refer the students to our program.
All right, and then can you review the application process? Would you recommend going to the Americorps website?
I'd recommend going to the literations.org website, because we have a link there, a button that you can just click that says apply now, and it will take you to an online application. And once we receive your application, it does ask you for 2 references. So we contact you just to confirm we received your application. There's a brief interview with a staff member. We check those references, and then there's a background check, a query check and fingerprinting, and that's arranged by staff after you've kind of gone through the application process and done the interview and references. Then we connect with you to arrange fingerprinting, which is at no cost to you. It is paid for by AARP.
Thank you so much, Liz. There are more questions popping up. If you would be so kind as to answer those into chat. We only have a few minutes left. We do have one more volunteer opportunity to talk about, and then we have a follow-up poll to finish the day. So I want to pass it back over to Cara Cohen, who is going to talk a little bit about the AARP Foundation Tax Aid Program. Unfortunately, we could not have our volunteer state coordinator, Joan Gong, on today, but Cara is kind enough to talk a little bit about tax aid for her.
Thank you. Yes, in 1 minute or less, I will tell you that we have 500 plus AARP Foundation tax aid volunteers across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and they help countless taxpayers, well over 30,000 taxpayers every year, connect with the resources and money that they have earned over the years, and get back the money that they so well deserve. It cuts to the core of our mission as an organization. It goes back to the reason why Ethel Percy Andrus founded this organization. It's about connecting people with their hard-earned money and helping people for free do their taxes. Now, you do not have to be an accounting wizard. You can help in other fashions as well. But if you are good with computers, we want you, and we want you to go online now to show your interest in becoming an AARP Foundation tax aid volunteer. In fact, let me point you to a resource that you want to keep handy and bookmark on your computer. You want to bookmark our state page, aarp.org/MA, That's aarp.org/MA. You just saw it in the chat. It is replete with information, including how to become an AARP tax aid volunteer, but you'll find countless other pieces of information there, including a lot of what you heard about today. And when you go to the tax aid blog, you will see that there's a link for you to apply online to be a tax aid volunteer. Please consider it. We need people who are also interested in being interpreters, paper organizers, somebody to help the flow for these great people to get their money back across the state of Massachusetts. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sandra Harris, who's going to bring it home for us. And Sandra, take it away.
Wow, Cara. Even as the state president, I continue to be amazed at the contributions of AARP's volunteers and the difference they are making in their communities and across the state. I wonder, did you find an opportunity that interests you? Why don't you take the time to answer a quick poll question being launched now? What role presented today is of interest to you? You can choose more than one, and we'll give you for a few minutes. Okay, Kelly, will you, when ready, send us the results?
Sure, we've got almost 50% that have answered. So we'll give it one more minute. All right, I'm going to share those results.
Ah, look at that. We're basically coming out almost even, right? With a lot in literations, and then Speakers Bureau, and I guess we've gotten those of you who are unsure. So this is a lot for us to work with. So Kelly, you will document this information and we will be in touch with you. And if you did not find the role that you are looking for today, you can find more local volunteers opportunities at www.createthegood.org, where you can search based on your geography, your skills, and your interest. We truly hope that you enjoyed getting to know AARP this morning, and we hope to see many of you at our upcoming events, meetings, and volunteer opportunities. As a reminder, all next steps that were discussed today will be sent to registrants via email. We would also love your feedback, so please take a few moments to answer the event survey that will accompany the email. On behalf of all of AARP Massachusetts volunteers, our staff, I thank you once again for spending your morning with us and hope you have a